Morning, one and all present here. I am Advocate HB Keshava. So, the topic of discussion in this particular video is understanding the fundamentals of the oil and gas business. Now, when we hear the name oil and gas, what are the first terms that comes to our mind? Petroleum, natural gas, crude oil, diesel, kerosene, gasoline, and in certain cases, we even look at special types of lubricants and oils which are also developed from this entity called as crude oil. This entire process of mining or extraction of crude oil and then basically breaking it down into the different parameters such as petroleum, natural gas, diesel, kerosene, and then further supplying it down is the entire business, is what is assumed by everybody. But we do not know the fact that the oil and gas business actually begins at a much deeper grassroots level. The oil and gas business actually begins with the allotment of the oil and gas plots, or as we call it as blocks. And once a block is allotted, private companies which tie up with the government sectors, they conduct the complete extraction process, and through this extraction process they will bring out the crude oil. Once the crude oil has been completely extracted, that entire process is called as upstream sector. Then comes the sector which is called as midstream. In the midstream sector, we majorly focus upon the conversion and the supply of this crude oil from the extraction point to the processing units or the factories. And post that, once the extraction has been completed, this particular movement of oil and gas to petrol pumps, to petroleum sectors, to basically the common man is what we call as the downstream sector or the gas sector. So in this entire unit, in this particular unit, we are going to discuss first about the basics of the oil and gas sector. The oil and gas industry is one of the largest in the world, and it is estimated somewhere between at $3.3 trillion, and that is annually. And as we know, oil and gas is extremely crucial for our socio-economic framework, especially for countries like United States, then the Saudi Arabia, Russia, Canada, even China. So that is the reason most of the investors, I mean majority of the investors all across the globe, they choose to go into and invest in the oil and gas sector. Now, the oil and gas sector has certain factors that we need to understand. That is, exploration and production is the first factor that everybody pays attention to. Exploration and production basically means exploring the sector or exploring areas where there is a possibility that they could basically hit oil. Meaning, these are sectors where possibly people, once they conduct the drilling operation or the mining operation, they are bound to come across the entity called as crude oil. Now, exploration is not an easy process. Exploration consists of multiple factors, such as first getting the block allotment. Second factor, being accepted by the local authorities. If it is onshore, is it offshore? Then the local authorities giving the approval. Furthermore, once that particular process has begun, then the certain contractual obligations that exist between the industry which is conducting the extraction process. What are the subsidiary industries that are involved? Who have been given the tasks or who have been given the challenges or opportunities to conduct the drilling process? How many men are going to work out there? Are there going to be any labor compliances? Furthermore, what are the kind of equipments that are going to be used? What is going to be the environmental aspect? Because in the oil and gas sector, one of the biggest challenges is what happens on the environment front. If suppose if it is being conducted on the offshore basin, then in the offshore basin, the marine life could get affected. The basic bread and butter which comes through fishing, that could get affected. And if the oil drilling is taking place and for some reason there is a mishap or an accident, then there could be a major oil spill. How many equipments are going to be placed in water? This is just the offshore challenges. So to put it in a nutshell, the health, safety and environmental challenges. Challenge number two is the onshore based extraction. On the onshore based extraction, again, has there been a land allotment? If a certain land has been allotted, now how many people are going to work on that land? Is that land being allotted which is probably in a village, which is attached to a village, which is probably attached to a populated area, which is attached to a wildlife sanctuary, which is there in between a wildlife area, which requires major number of trees to be cut down, which requires a certain reallotment or movement of the entire flora and fauna. All these factors come into play when we are looking at onshore. And if onshore drilling is being conducted, is that particular block near a seismic plate? Is it near one of the basic tropics? All these factors have to be considered when the exploration and production operation is conducted. Now, exploration production is by far the most preliminary sector when you're dealing with the upstream sector of oil and gas. In exploration, basically what happens is that a major amount of drilling is conducted, a major amount of digging is conducted, a major amount of exploration takes place in the form of going down wells, creating oil wells, seeing as to what are the possibilities that a particular area may have, your carbon components, or is there any other product? Is it a soft rock? Is it hard rock? All these factors are looked at when an exploration process is conducted. During the entire exploration process, there are few more challenges that comes by. Safety of an individual. Now, as we know that a safety of a human being is very important when he or she has been employed in a certain sector. So, when a person has been employed in a certain sector, and especially in the oil and gas sector, where there can be fire hazards, where there can be toxic hazards, where there can be malfunction of a certain machinery, which could cause maybe some kind of an accident or even death, then in such scenarios, major labor law applications also have to be there. So that's the reason why exploration is called one of the most dangerous and one of the most important, and of course, the preliminary action when it comes down to the oil and gas sector. Once the exploration is conducted, then comes production. Now, production by far is very easy. In production, what happens is once your oil starts getting extracted, the oil that is found out is basically your crude oil. So, crude oil is has a composition of petroleum, natural gas, compressed natural gas at times. Then it has diesel in it. It has kerosene in it. So, in production, the actual challenge is to try and split the crude oil. Now, as we know that crude oil is a very viscous material. So therefore, in the production sector, it is extremely important that it is conducted with utmost care. because that is where the actual challenges can come by. And in many scenarios, in many circumstances, the challenge can be so deep that without the right process to be conducted and without the right materials, without the right machinery, without the right tools, the crude oil can go to waste. That is precisely the reason why the production part of the upstream sector is extremely challenging. Now, before we proceed into this, let us go step by step and understand what each and every single aspect of oil and gas is, why it is important.